Welcome to the Closing Table, where a Howard Hanna community comes together at one table, real estate, mortgage, title, insurance, at one place. At the end of the transaction, we're all in different places, but the closing table is where it all hits home. So, welcome to the Closing Table.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to have you guys on here and talk about business, talk about the real estate business and the mortgage business and how you guys work together to make the dream come true. I got Frankowski with us, a real estate agent at the Shadyside office. Frank, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you...
So I'm Ryan Frankowski, but thank you. A lot of people call me Franco or Frank, but so I'm from the Shadyside Howard Hanna office and born and raised in Pittsburgh, but lived in New York and LA and even Milan for a bit.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So the Shadyside office, because Brendan's from the Shadyside office too. So we have agents that are hopefully watching this from outside of Pennsylvania, and they'll think that's some crazy shady place. So tell us about the Shadyside market.
Oh, Shadyside is really an exclusive neighborhood in the east end of the city of Pittsburgh. It's one of my favorite neighborhoods. I grew up in Bloomfield and then moved to O'Hara Township, but I always love going down Walnut Street. A lot of cool shops, boutiques, coffee shops. I mean, it's one of the higher price points, but it's just got that exclusivity that a lot of Pittsburghers and out-of-towners really love and want to buy in.
Okay, and I don't know if you guys know this, but that was the Shadyside office was the original Howard Hanna office.
Yes, that's right.
And my grandfather, when he started the company, he was going to call it the Shadyside office. You guys know this story?
I do.
Yeah, he was going to call it the Shadyside office, but he and he went to he's going to call it Shadyside Real Estate, the company's name. And he went to go file a fictitious name registration, and it cost like $15. And he was like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not paying $15. So they said, well, if you use your own name as the name of a company, then you don't have to pay any money. So that's how Howard Hanna became Howard Hanna and not Shadyside. And you fast forward, it's like Shadyside would have been a strange name for Shadyside Real Estate.
Yeah.
Howard Hanna sounds pretty good.
Yeah, well, thanks. So Brendan,
Yeah.
loan officer in Shadyside. Why don't you just give your little background, because you have a unique background and how you came into the business and where you are now.
I do, yeah. So I came from a real estate background throughout my entire life with my family. My dad did own a real estate company, so I was always surrounded kind of by this industry, as well as a majority of my aunt and uncles are in the mortgage industry. Have been with Howard Hanna now about 5 years. Just celebrated that this past month. It's been an awesome 5 years with that. Have been doing pretty well, especially within the Shadyside office. So excited for what the future holds here.
Awesome. So guys, the reason for the Closing Table is to take our company, which has grown so fast, and have a place where we can introduce agents and loan officers and title people and the whole company to one another. So you guys are in Pittsburgh and we're having this podcast. We're talking. The next episode might be somebody in Charlotte or Indianapolis, and sort of a great way to introduce one another and talk about business and hopefully have a little bit of fun as we go.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that we can't hide from, okay, is that real estate's a tough business. It's transactional.
Mm-hmm.
We do a deal, we dust ourselves off, and we're doing the next deal.
Yep.
So we would be lying to ourselves if we said everything was easy. Tell me a little bit about a deal. You both are relatively young, but you're doing great. Tell us about a deal that might have been tough that you guys relied on one another to help you out. Do you want to?
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with a couple that I'm really close with, friends and family. He's a vet, so he was able to get the veterans loan. And, I think it was just one of those deals that was done in February of last year. And so, everything outside being like in the freezing temperatures, going through the inspection process, the pre-approval. I mean, we really needed to act fast because this was like a hot property and like a desirable school district. So I really was fortunate to be able to call Brendan on a Friday night to get a pre-approval done very quickly, to put in an offer before the open house that was scheduled on Saturday. So with Brendan and in my back pocket, I call him my secret weapon. I was able to text him and say, Brendan, red alert, we need to get a pre-approval. This couple wasn't planning on putting in an offer. They just found their dream home. and they were near and dear to my heart. I grew up with them, some of my closest friends, and Brendan was able to come through even though he was at a wedding weekend. I think he was one of the best man in the wedding, or what are they called? Groomsmen.
Groomsmen, yeah.
And then you
not the maid of honor.
No, he wasn't the maid of honor, no. But he did come through, and it was so quickly, and I just felt like very fortunate to be able to get them the deal because, you know, there were a couple of other offers, and I think we really were able to be the first one in. And, you know, they always say the first offer sometimes is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
this was a VA loan.
this was a VA
Okay.
loan.
I mean, a lot of people cringe.
Yeah.
They're afraid of VA loans, but I know you're not,
Yeah.
Brendan. And you and I have talked about this several times. So why don't you elaborate on this particular deal and what happened?
So VA loans, you know, obviously benefit veterans. With that, they offer 0% down, no mortgage insurance, and you know, depending upon the eligibility of that individual, can determine what purchase price that they have. So this couple here, I believe the sale price was about $650. So it was a pretty high priced home, and you know, different prices of houses, you'll see different appraisals and repairs come back depending upon that price range. So in this price range, we didn't have too many worries, but it really doesn't matter regardless of what that price range is. So in this particular situation, there were a few safety hazards as well as peeling paint on the garage. Now, we were able to, I think, Ryan, you were working at 10 p.m. at night to get that garage painted. Approaching closing, we were able to turn around quickly to install a few railings and fences that needed to be put up. So I think just with that, you know, last minute stuff that can arise, especially with difficulty maybe finding contractors, we were able to get to that closing table.
Yeah, but so you mentioned you're working at 10 o'clock at night trying to get this property ready, and he's at a wedding, and you got this. So I think that, like, you know, reading between the lines here, I think you guys worked well together because you guys are sort of mirror each other. You're not afraid to call him at any time. You're not afraid to call him at any time. You know, you're explaining that working relationship. And what made you early in your career like gravitate to Brendan?
You know what? I think we had a lot of similarities, you know, just from background, both being in Pittsburgh, both being in the same office, but also like he has this like youthful energy that he could be available 7 days a week. I mean, in some ways, I feel like we can relate on that because maybe we don't have kids and we don't have a family. So we are available as much as we like to have a personal life. I feel like work for us at this stage is probably number one priority.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything bad about anyone else who has, you know, other priorities and work is second. You know, that's to each their own. I think in our stage of our life, in your late 20s, my mid 30s, it's all about, you know, being competitive and giving our clients the best service. And, you know, we know that there are so many other realtors and so many other loan officers in any market in the US, you know, anywhere globally. And so we really want to, you know, hone in on giving the best service. And I learned a lot from my great aunt who actually is with the company for 45 years, Rita Licknerski. Shout out to Rita. Aunt Rita has
I didn't know
taught
Rita
me.
was your aunt.
She's my great aunt.
Okay.
And I only say great aunt not to talk about her age. She is 81 and she would be very happy about like,
Now things are making a lot more sense to me.
yeah, she's very outspoken.
Yes.
But she taught me that like this will be your life. You will miss, you know, certain events. You will miss certain things. But luckily with the cell phone, modern technology, being able to work remote, we can be able to do these deals. I was actually in skiing and steamboat while this was going on. And
Okay.
Brendan was at a wedding. You know, I showed them the property. They wanted to put in an offer. I was on a flight. We made it happen because we're fortunate that we really prioritize our clients. And, you know, when it comes to their dream home, like you have to make it happen.
Absolutely, and trust is key. It's you guys know each other's work ethics,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And behaviors.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just with this industry being 24/7, you know, normally people work 9 to 5, have those normal hour jobs, and can't really focus upon, you know, purchasing a home or, you know, reply to inspections, financing aspects. So really, anytime after that 9 to 5 is when they're most available, going to see properties on the weekends. So it's just kind of part of the job.
Great. And any other like deals like that that you want to share?
I think you had one you mentioned. We were
Yes.
just talking about.
So one of the deals that we actually kept together was another close friend of Ryan's, and we structured the deal to have maximum seller assist on the upfront offer. You know, to benefit the total cash to close. When that inspection came back, there was quite a bit of things that were on it that the buyer did want to have taken care of. You know, through negotiating, we actually ended up getting not additional seller assist because it was already at max, but we had the sellers cover the transfer tax. And it was in the city of Pittsburgh, which is actually 2.5% each side. So in essence, looking at it, you know, the buyer was able to get 5.5% toward their, you know, total cash to close, which actually ended up keeping the deal together. You know, I think otherwise maybe it would have had a different outcome, but you know, we were all smiling at that closing table.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Brian, you've worked with other lenders. You know, it's okay. It's okay.
You're not going to judge me.
Yeah,
It's not always my decision.
No, I know. I obviously no. But what is the difference?
You know what? The difference is very black and white, night and day. It's so extreme that I like have had real frustrations when I haven't had that connection or that relationship. And then also on top of it, having the capability, as much as we like to work remote and, you know, be out of the office in the field, me and Brendan share an office in Pittsburgh of Shadyside office. And it is nice to be able to kind of get together in the conference room, you know, brainstorm what is going to be a creative way to get this deal to the finish line. And so having that face-to-face interaction and then also having the reliability, like one of the big banks that I did not choose, this was a buyer that she chose this bank, and it was like going through this secure messaging software, and it was like I didn't have access to their cell phone. I didn't have access to their direct email. I had to go through some so it was such a hard process to get anything accomplished. And I think when you are having competitive deals that need to be, you know, multiple offers, or it would be just something that maybe Brendan would be able to troubleshoot with our, you know, we have the same boss. So we can actually kind of divide and conquer the three of us.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as we grow as a company, you know, we hopefully never lose that small feel too. And I think, you know, you probably feel that, Brendan. You know, you have access to management, to underwriting, to, you know, it's not someone out there that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Would you explain some of that?
So although the company is expanding, it still has that family feel, as well as, you know, me just being an employee. I have my manager's number, you know, in my cell phone that I could call right now on this podcast, and he'd probably answer, especially if he knew I was with you. But yeah, I think, you know, our clients are the buyers, but it's also the real estate agents. And I think the entire company does know that. You know, it's a real estate company that owns a mortgage company. So our focus is on the real estate agents to get that transaction completed. And I think not only does myself know that, but operations also are aware. And I think they all come together to try and, you know, get the deal to, you know, maybe a commitment letter sent out on time, or, you know, if there's something that needs to be addressed immediately, I think all hands are on deck, especially, you know, throughout management, if you get them involved as well.
Yeah, I mentioned my grandfather earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to meet
yeah.
him. Okay, great. But he would used to come to the office and he'd say to you know, some poor processor sitting there like, "Who do you work for?" And they get nervous. "Oh, I work for you, Mr. Hanna." And they, "No, you don't." And they say, "Well, I work for Hottie then. I work for Helen." "No, you don't." And they'd say, "You work for the Howard Hanna real estate agent and their clients."
Yep.
You know, and that is a point that I mean, you mentioned it, Brendan, that I'm so glad that it's that's still the mantra of the company. It needs to continue to always be the mantra of the company because that's who we are. That's what Brendan. You're not calling on XYZ real estate companies.
Yeah.
You're calling on the agents from Howard Hanna to help them and their borrowers get to the closing table.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And Brendan offers like a unique communication model for somebody who is newer as an agent a year ago. And I feel like I'm able to kind of learn from him. He's able to kind of tell it to me in layman's terms for maybe an agent that's not familiar with the finance or with the mortgage rates and the interest. But that being said, like I want to get to a point where I can communicate to my clients about like what the process is, but then he also can just like pick up on a phone call right before we tour a property and kind of make them feel comfortable going into putting an offer in. So I think that's a nice way to have him like just be able to have that conference call with my buyers or sellers.
Yeah, and that's a great lead into my next question as we were talking before the podcast, Brendan, you mentioned why it's important to stay in your lane.
Exactly.
Why don't you expand on that a little bit? I think
so that
Ryan
was actually
taught
by me from one of my mentors, and I think it is very important because I'm in a different lane when it comes to the real estate transaction as well as the real estate agent. Now we all have the same goal. However, one of the main things I always tell all my agents is to stay in your lane and I'll stay in mine. I don't want to work on or see the home inspection. I don't want to talk about commissions. I don't want to talk about how many bedrooms do you want, bathrooms do you want, any of that nonsense. However, I think it's still important that the agents have enough knowledge to be aware of the situation, but also know how to point them in the right direction. And then that's where I come into play to talk about any financing questions, any ways to structure certain deals. Anything that might benefit them on the mortgage side of things. And I think it's just important to not confuse, the current market, there's a lot of first-time home buyers. And I think, obviously not a lot of people understand a real estate transaction. So it's important to have all different avenues of that transaction to be covered and have those professionals stay in their professional lane.
Okay, and it's important that you have each of the lanes covered, right? So you have a team. Brendan being part of your team. How does that help your experience?
I mean, it makes me look really good as an agent because I have a team behind me that I really didn't think was part of the process. Coming from a property management perspective, it was just me and the owner, and I was kind of fending for myself. And even in my other positions, I think with this particular real estate brokerage and office, I feel so much more advanced than I would have if I didn't have Tom Yargo, Brendan O'Toole, shout out to my office. But I know that that's a similar model in every office I've seen at Howard Hanna going into like Fox Chapel or Hampton or other offices. You feel like you have that same dynamic that you can reach out to the manager or even the other loan officer. It's not super competitive in a way. Even with the realtors, we want to do a Howard Hanna to Howard Hanna deal together. But we also know that like everybody has their own fit and personality, that we're not like competing like, no, that's my client, like you can't talk to them. It's not like that. And it's an interesting dynamic that I didn't expect.
Yeah, and that's the culture we're trying to build.
Yeah.
So to sort of sum it up, if you were sitting here at the closing table,
yes,
what do you guys think is sort of the key, the most important thing that you could pass on to people or remind yourselves about how working together gets you to the closing table?
I think first and foremost is understanding your client. I think, like Ryan had mentioned a few times throughout this episode, that every transaction is different, every buyer is different, every seller is different. So understanding their different personality and kind of passing that along to each other. And I think the availability throughout this industry and throughout every transaction just needs to be apparent. I know things come up as well as, events might be happening, but, to bounce that off each other and to, kind of try and, make it, we all have the same goal in mind is to get to that closing. So I think it's just very important to understand each other as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I feel that this is really something I try to make every client and everybody that I work with that is in a high stress situation. And it is one of the biggest investments of their life
Mhm.
potentially. So I think just being the calm one and the one that can pivot and, overcome obstacles and really just having that reassurance to communicate with your client like, I got you covered, like we will find a solution. I am solutions driven for you. And I think that they just, it's stressful, sometimes the process, and it doesn't have to be. If you have a realtor or a loan officer that is willing to go the extra mile to overcome any obstacle. Like even the one deal we did, we removed a garage for, to get the deal done. And some people would have been like, I don't even want to mess with that.
Mhm.
And we wanted to go the extra mile. And it wasn't like a large listing or wasn't a large, commission, but it was something that you could see like this buyer is so happy and excited.
It was important to
because
those customers.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And that's really what makes our job so much fun, is seeing somebody like buy their dream home or buy their first home, or even just, find a really good new opportunity in their life.
Well, I don't think we could end on any better message than that, Ryan. And I appreciate you guys coming on. I got to admit, I was a little nervous because Ryan is a professional podcaster. Tell everyone what's your podcast.
Oh
so we can-
yes,
yeah.
it's called Mocktails or Messy. Brendan's heard me talk about this in nauseum. It's my best girlfriend, and she's actually a client of ours. And she's a mother, and I'm a sober one, and we kind of combined like what it's like to we like to normalize the new happy hour with mocktails or cocktails, whatever you prefer.
Cool.
What do you prefer?
I prefer cocktails. People know me. I prefer cocktails.
Yes.
So where can people see this?
Oh, you could see it on YouTube. It is youtube.com/mocktails or messy. And then even on Instagram, we have 38,000 followers.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, Brendan O'Toole, 412-584-9055.
Love it. Well, guys, thanks for joining me. And until next time, I will see you at the closing table.